And we're live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Old Gray Bricks Messy Monday. We are having a small mess this evening. Chris had to do some work this evening. Dana is not feeling well. But we've got Rich down below. We got Matthew. And Just Jeff is somewhere behind that color bar screen. So in the chat, hello to Andrew Sada, Seth Bland, Gary Blaine from Ireland, Mr. Blue Sky. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. So what are you guys doing?
I actually have a question for Gary Mullane. I'm impressed that he tunes in from Ireland, and I know he's in the chat, but I'm curious, like how is Lego building in Ireland? I know the UK is a really big market, and there's a fair number of stores in the UK, but I don't know what's the deal in Ireland. I mean, I'm guessing there's probably a store in Dublin, but I don't know. But it is interesting. When I went to Australia, which has some pretty dedicated Lego fans, there were no Lego branded stores at the time when I was there, which probably was about 5 years ago. I think about 2015, 2016, somewhere in there. And everything in Australia was more expensive. The food was definitely more expensive. We went in a bookstore, which we often do because we both like books, and there were the prices in euros, and then there was the price on the book flap in dollars, and then they would have the price, a sticker price for Australian dollars, and it was probably another 50% markup if you bought anything in Australia. So there are a couple of interesting books that I came across, and I just took a picture of the cover, and I was thinking to myself, I'll just buy that when I get back to the United States. And I talked to a couple when I worked at Lego here in North America and the Alpharetta store. I once had a couple who came in from Australia, and they had specifically brought an empty suitcase just to take Lego back, because from their perspective, Lego in the United States was much, much cheaper, and they could purchase it there in Australia. So I'm assuming Ireland, being as close as it is to continental Europe, that there's probably not the shipping markup, but I'm wondering how much of a retail footprint Lego has there. I just don't know. Let me hop over.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with Brexit and everything else, since they're not part of the who's its and the whatnots, is Ireland and Scotland still part of the UK, or are they part of the Europe?
Ireland's most of Ireland has been independent since World War I era. So they're coming up on about 100 years. So they probably just passed 100 years of the Irish Republic. So they've been independent for a very long time. And okay, it's a good thing you didn't say that in front of any Irish person. They would probably be upset with you.
I am Irish.
Well, I'm part Scots-Irish. Northern Ireland is still part of the UK, but most of the island of Ireland is part of the Republic of Ireland. And
all right, so
much blood has been spilled over this question. So
very true.
Not a casual topic for some Irish people.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it later after stream. So the thing that gets me is that if if all that craziness is going on, I don't live there, so it's whatever. But to me, it would be, I don't know, I think there would be a bit of a cost, because wasn't the economy turned like upside down due to Brexit and everything else? So like even shipping to like certain parts of Ireland would be more expensive than like the parts of Ireland that are still part of the UK or what have you.
Well, Ireland is part of the customs union. So that means that goods and services made in Denmark, they have to be put on a boat to brought over to the Republic of Ireland, but there's no tariffs, there's no surcharges when they come into Ireland. So now, if Lego Corporation ships things to the UK, they'll probably have to pay a markup. I'm not an expert on trade policy, but this is one of the issues that's still being somewhat negotiated. But for Ireland, there's no trade barrier, so there's only the cost of shipping, and obviously, it's much cheaper probably for Lego to be shipped from factories in Poland and Slovakia to Germany and to France or Italy, because they can just load all that stuff up on a train. Gary says, we do not have a Lego store in Ireland. We use Smith's Toys. And I do see on forums, Facebook forums, such as, AFLs of Facebook and other such things, that people will talk a lot about Smiths. So we don't have any Smiths here in the United States. And so that's not a retail outlet that we're familiar with. But
well, I mean, we all know how good Germans are at loading things up on trains for their product to be. I'm sorry. We have Kroger's, which is, Smith's is owned by Kroger's, but not the same Smith's as Smythe's in the UK. I don't know.
Smith with a Y, yes. Yeah, it is interesting when you think about a business like Lego, which has an international clientele. It doesn't get distributed the same way in every country. And I know for a while, I don't know if it's still true, I know that for a while there were no official Lego brand stores in Italy, which is also part of the European Union, and that there were Lego affiliates, but not actual retail outlets owned by Lego itself. So
that seems wacky with like all the Lamborghini and like Ferrari stuff they do to promote, like, you'd think they'd be there.
Well, I'm sure they sell. I mean, they're just, what they're doing is they're turning around and, they're selling stuff through other outlets. Like in the United States, our biggest outlets are Walmart and Target. So they're basically, selling their goods, or those outlets are purchasing the goods and then putting them on shelves, and people go to these other shops to purchase their Lego.
For the longest time, Lego has had Ferrari partnerships because Keld owns Ferraris and he loves Ferraris, and that's pretty much been why they've had Ferrari stuff.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's that was something that I learned from him in person when he came to Brickfest way back in, I think it was 2005.
Okay.
We were just talking about, I don't know, somehow we got talking about Ferraris, and he's like, "Oh, I love Ferraris. That's why we have Ferrari sets." We're like, "Oh, good to know."
Nice.
Well, I mean, Lego is still a family-owned company. It's not.
Yes, it is.
It's not your average publicly traded thing or whatever, but
I mean, it explains why the Lamborghinis are kind of lacking.
I cannot speak to any of the more recent Speed Champion sets because those are I'm sure much more subject to partnerships and licensing. Yada, yada.
They are.
Well, Mark, let me ask you this question. I know you appreciate cars. I am not a quote unquote car guy myself. I use vehicles to get around, and I admire certain vehicles. But are you personally drawn to any of the big vehicles, because they've come out with a whole series of pretty big and fairly complex looking Technic builds, and I've never tried to build any of those, but
no, even though I do like cars and I'm a car fan, I really don't care that much about the actual car sets. And no particular reason why. I just never really was my thing. So yeah, not so much for me.
Well, let's talk about that for just a second. I'm going to interrupt the hell out of you, Gil. So you drive a very unique Audi, Mark, and I finally saw it when I was when we met up at Atlanta Brick Company.
Yeah,
and I didn't really expect that color to ever be on a car, and the color that you have is amazing on it. So I just wanted to say that real quick, but go ahead, Gil.
No, I have to concur. The color on Mark's car is really nice.
it's called District Green. And it's not a special order or anything. It is a stock color that you can get on some models of Audi last year and this year, but it's extremely uncommon. You don't see it on very many cars, and I had to order mine from the factory to get it in that color. So,
Do you think
That's what I-
that because showrooms are afraid it won't sell, and so they don't carry it? Not very many dealers carry it.
yeah, that's kind of a chicken and egg problem with showrooms, because typical showrooms will stock what is most likely to sell, and what is most likely to sell is going to be the middle trim level of any given model in black, white, or silver. Those are something that's got some options, but it's not fully loaded. But black, white, and silver, because you can generally get most people to just sort of go, okay, I'll buy this car today, because black, white, and silver are all inoffensive. And
Yeah.
that's straight up.
Here actually, it would be a good future graph for Matt, considering his love of both graphs and colors. That if you took a look at the colors that were on cars produced in North America by the big five down to the big four, between like mid 40s to about like probably late 60s, it's like this beautiful kaleidoscope of colors, like amazing, like pastels and tons of metallics and all these different shades and lavenders and robin's eggs. And the current color on my car is a throwback to the silver blue of the early 60s that Ford used. Like all these colors are they're gorgeous. And you see some of the nicer colors that catch your eyes these days, much like like Mark's current. His also comes. I can't remember the Audi name for it, but that amazing blue, that cobalty blue, that can come in and stuff, right?
They've got a few different blues.
Yeah.
Because there was one called Navara Blue that I looked at, but
Yeah.
I felt it was dark enough that it would look dirty all the time, because
Right.
I work in an industrial area where there's all kinds of trucks throwing up dirt and crud all over the place all the time, and I figured my car is going to look dirty a lot if I get it in that dark blue. It's beautiful, but
Yeah, exactly. But the interesting part would be see the reduction in color choices between about 1973, 4 to current today, where just like Mark was saying, it's like silver, white, black, maybe red, right? Maroon. And and that's the thing that I find is like whenever you go to the car shows and stuff, the cars themselves, the designs and shapes and everything is nice, but the most beautiful about things mostly is you look out into the rows and it's just gorgeous colors as far as you can see, right? And that's to me that's one of the nicest parts of it.
Well, as a not someone who's a car aficionado, one of the things about the recent revival of the Volkswagen Bug was the unusual colors. I mean, they're fun colors, different tones.
Yeah.
Like the Mini Cooper had some really fun paint jobs that were options. So again, it was something that I noticed. It caught my eye. I would see one on the road and I would say, well, that's a cool color.
Yeah.
When I first saw Mark's, I mean, I would call it forest green, the color that the vehicle is, but I was like, I didn't know they made that in that color.
Yeah. And it's also how they do the sheen too, right? Because you see like if you you see some of those colors. I saw that color of Mark's just the other day for the first time here, and it's that really nice. I kind of want to call it like creamy metallic. It's not like a hard fleck, but it somehow has like a iridescence to it. So yeah, it's really amazing what they can do with the finishes and stuff.
Well, Mark, let me ask you this question. Could Lego tweak their car offerings to get you more excited about it? Would there be something that's lacking that if they changed, you would be like, oh yeah, I want that?
Guns.
Shooters.
I'm not really into the car sets.
Okay.
I mean, number one, because like the big nice car sets like the Porsche or whatever, that's a shelf sitter, and
Right.
I don't buy a whole lot of shelf sitters.
Right.
So
You said sitter, right?
I did. You got to
Okay.
say it carefully.
Okay.
Shelf sitter. Don't say it too fast. But yeah, I kind of don't buy a lot of stuff. I mean, I have a few sets on the shelf over here. You can see my I got my Star Warsy sets and my Galaxy Explorer sitting over there. That's it. That is all the Lego sets I have sitting on a shelf right now. Not very much.
Nope.
I just don't. Typically, when I buy sets, they're either for small Paul or they're for parts. Like, I have 2 copies of this, the Jungle Dragon, and these are parts because there's a whole bunch of really great parts in this set in really cool colors. So a lot of times, if I buy a set for myself, it's to get those parts and build whatever I want to build out of them.
Right.
Well, I did the same thing. I bought the Fiat initially just to get the parts in the new pale yellow color, and then I got it home and I thought, well, I'll just go on Bricks and Pieces and order the parts. So I returned it, and I got the parts are what I wanted. So I just went in, and I got it. But and then they're redoing the Fiat in another color. So I was quite pleased to see that because it's fun to get those bows and those kinds of pieces in new colors.
So yeah, Brahm says that the creator cars may be shelf sitters, but they are also really great creative builds. And that's me not buying them is not a criticism of the sets. It's just not my particular cup of tea to buy like one of those big sets and put it on a shelf. They do look really great. I mean, looking at the Porsche, it's a really great looking set. So, that's not a criticism of the set. It's just not what I prefer to buy with my Lego budget.
Right. Some people like Italian. Some people like Chinese food. They're not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't typically like those bigger cars either, but the recent Porsche that came out, the white one, I almost pulled the trigger on it a couple of times just because I like Porsches. So, but I mean, it's typically not something that I would go for. So I don't have the big ass Ecto 1. Like, I don't need big cars.
Yeah, I mean, it is very cool, and I do like that era of car. That era of Porsche is very cool. I mean, it looks neat.
When I was working at the retail store, that's when the Speed Champions line debuted, and we actually had a couple of salespeople who were down the corner at the Ferrari deal who came by the small Ferrari to build and set on their tables, on the sales floor. So they at least got a few sales from the Ferrari.
I think the thing about the Speed Champions though, that's like it's great for. There's a lot of kids who love cars, right? And it's like great price points, good builds, good value, good pieces. Like there's a ton of really solid pieces in those things. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I could definitely see those appealing to your kind of maybe kids who think they're maybe a little old for some of the themes, but it's because getting into the teenage sort of ish, but because they're awesome cars, that maybe that appeals more to that kind of.
Yeah. Jeff, you just held up that Mustang there. When I just had to run out to the pharmacy just before, and going out the end of the street, and there's a guy who moved in not so long ago, and he pulls out of his garage a sparkling mint 1969 Mach, Cobra Mach, or Mustang, Mustang Mach. And like that color with like the gold highlights, like the whole thing, like it looked like it just rolled off the assembly line. And I had no idea he lived there, but yeah. But it's always one of these guys that happened to be kind of driving by him and windows down, kind of stops. Said, "Oh," I said, "It's a beautiful car, man. It looks really, really nice." He's like, "Yep." Okay, well, enjoy that car then.
There's a person in Edmond who has a Cobra Shelby.
Yeah.
And it's signed by Shelby. And we see it like almost all the time, just being some rich old dude's like daytime drive. And it's like, I asked him, I was like, man, that's an amazing car. Like, and he's like, oh, yeah. My other one's a P1.
Nice.
I want that much money.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I look at those things and like the only thing I can think of is there's so much money tied up in those, so much work, and they're kind of also too a major pain in the ass.
Oh,
like
yeah.
to keep those things running, like they're always breaking, always breaking. So yeah, I don't know. I'd like to look at them, but I'm glad there's somebody else's.
Pinkwell's made the point that Formula One racing is a much more popular sport than auto racing here in the United States. And I grew up in the Midwest, and of course that's the home to the Indy 500. Both my parents were from the state of Indiana, and my dad was not a huge sports person, but he would often make a point to watch the Indy 500. I don't know, just kind of maybe out of a sense of like Hoosier pride.
Well, I mean, it's also like Le Mans. Like, I watch Le Mans whenever I can when it's on TV, or I'll watch the recorded version, up until it's stopped or whatever. And I don't like racing. I'm not a big fan of like that style of racing. I love rally racing and I love touring racing. But there's something about Le Mans, there's something about Indy 500 that gets every person that has a heart kind of pumped up, because once you hear those engines going and everything else, you're like, I'm down, let's do this. And going to a race live is completely different than watching it on the telly. So
I mean, we host an F1 here every year, they shut down the whole area down by the lake and all this kind of thing. And I've been to it twice. I mean, the noise it's obnoxiously loud, like it's louder than anything I've ever heard. And like I've been like Rush concerts first row, and it's louder than that. So it's like, I don't know, man. You're right though. Like the excitement to it is amazing. But like if I like when I'm watching a race on TV, I think probably the most thrilling stuff has to be the Euro rally stuff, because like that, it's insane. Like I remember watching this one British team, they're in a Subaru or whatever, and they're whipping around the corner. They lose it, they go off, they get halfway into like a cow field. But on the way through, thank God it wasn't like a stone wall. It was like some sort of like timber thing. Timber comes like straight through, right? Straight through the windshield. And, Nigel is trying to get the thing back on the road, right? While Simon Corkington beside him is like, he's trying to ram the fence post back out through the window the way it came. So he can't get it all the way out. So you see him, he undoes the belt and he kind of turns around, and it's all the camera inside the car. You just see his feet hitting the windshield till it and the timber go flying out, and then they carry on. But of course, it's always seems to be raining like crazy during those things. But they interviewed them at the end, and it's priceless because they it's like they're totally brown, right? And like a perfect square all the way around them. Like when they talk, you could just see their teeth, but too bad Martin's not here. I could make some teeth comment, but yeah, it's just oh man, like that's racing. That's like full contact racing.
So we went to dirt track racing a couple times. My dad took me, and once my grandpa went. My grandpa actually raced a little bit in like the 50s dirt track, and my dad raced in high school at the local track, and they hid it from their parents, him and his buddy, which they were able to keep it secret until they rolled the car over. And his buddy was the driver, and he was okay, but the car came to rest upside down. And when he went to pop the shoulder harness to get out, he fell straight down and jammed his neck. Had to go to the hospital for exiting the vehicle. He got hurt exiting the vehicle.
Jeez.
And so that's when mom and dad found out that they had been racing. Now his dad was like not at all surprised because it's kind of in the blood, I guess. But anyway, so my dad took me to dirt track racing, and apparently I didn't get that gene. But I will say I was unprepared for the flakes of like dirt and tire, whatever, that settle on your head. Like I was like, oh, I'm covered in road debris. It gets airborne and it comes down.
I had my old sergeant at the prison that I worked at, Klauser. He did amateur off-road endurance races. So like those tracks that are kitted out to be 4x4s and everything else, just roll hard. And man, some of the stuff that he's got stuff on YouTube, and like some of the stuff that he pulled off, it's just like, how are you still alive? And he's like, well, that's the one where I broke my leg. That's the one where I had to get 3 pins inserted into my hand or it wouldn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to see those trucks going, almost 150 miles an hour in the dirt and just like, oh, look, a jump. Oh, God.
Yeah.
And then hoping that you just land right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That whole scene, like, where I take my car to get the work done and stuff, they've got like track days and all this kind of stuff. And, that's where they make a lot of their money, is selling the upgrades to do the track days. But I'm like, there's one constant thing that's just like the track breaks stuff. Like, so, and if you're lucky, it's not going to break you. So unless you're like Meredith, and you've got like a car that, actually can do the track, and it's not meant for like a 10-second run, it's meant to actually go around it. Yeah, that's fun stuff. But if you're just there to like blow down the quarter mile, oh, forget it, man. I've got better stuff to do with my time and money than that. But, and I'm not 25. So yeah.
Meredith brought up the Pikes Peak, and I went to Pikes Peak, gosh, probably 20 years ago when my sister got married out in Denver. And my wife at the time and I went down to Colorado Springs, and you had a choice if you could ride the train up to the top or you could drive. Right. And it was a lot cheaper to drive. So, we were like, oh, we'll just drive up. We start driving up, and there is no guardrail, and it drops off like 1,000 feet. Once you get to the edge of the dirt, it is a cliff, and it just drops straight off quite a few places. Yeah. And so, as she pointed out, as Meredith pointed out, there's a race there every year. And just the thought of like going around a dirt corner with the wheels spinning and, trying to get traction, if you don't calculate that right, you're going right off the edge. It could kill you. And so we're going up. And at first, you're not that high up. But as we got higher and higher up, my wife, she's like, you drive in the middle of the road unless there's a car coming at us. She did not want to be over the edge. Yeah. So we drove in the middle of the road, I don't know, like 35 miles an hour all the way up. And the thought of people racing up and racing down that dirt road, just I can't imagine. I obviously don't have the mental toughness to do that myself.
Yeah.
I'm getting hard just thinking about it. That'd be awesome to do.
Well, a buddy a few years back, he wanted to take a trip to go do the Dragon's Tail, and that's Carolinas somewhere. Man, like that thing, they say before you go to that, it's similar kind of thing. It's just switchback after switchback. And basically say before you go, get a new set of brakes, because you're just going to burn them down completely. And if you're, if you have a clutch, just a regular clutch, and your car is standard, it's not going to make it. So, like, again, I don't have the money or time to do those kind of things. But, so where's the rest of the crew tonight?
Dana's sick, and
Oh, no.
Chris had to work tonight, and that's it. Just not that many people tuned in. So,
Gotcha.
I mean, not many guests appeared. So,
And Richard is having horrible internet issues.
yes, he is.
Hopefully Dana is just run-of-the-mill sick, because you say sick these days and it starts setting off alarm bells. So,
Yeah, he thinks that he and his wife had COVID early in the year. They both felt extremely tired for like 7 to 10 days, and I can't remember if he got tested and it came back negative. But you can have false negatives. It's just like you can have false positives. But they both kind of think they had it early in the year, so don't know.
we're both pretty sure after consulting our doctor that we had it last like March of 2020.
Okay.
Because same thing, like we were both extremely sick, and we both got sick fast, and we're sick, like quite sick, for about a week and a half. And then afterwards, like, in the year following that, like, man, like tired, like you just can't possibly imagine. But I think what was the clincher though is that when we both got our second shot, most people who have had COVID previously, they have a much higher instance of swollen lymph nodes, which we both got. So yeah, that's kind of points more to that. I think there's a ton of people that had COVID original flavor, and they just, they never know. It's not.
Just call it COVID original flavor.
Yeah.
It's the new Coke.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about asymptomatic cases or extremely light symptoms. If you don't feel terrible, there's an incentive not to go get the test. Whereas if you feel like death warmed over, you're going to be like, I need to go get checked. And so it's quite possible that, there's, quite realistic that there's millions of people who had asymptomatic cases and, never truly got identified as having it.
What was crazy once is I was on some, I can't remember what Facebook group it was, but people were sort of like someone was quite ill, or someone maybe in the past, I don't know, something bad related to COVID, and then they had there was a guy who got it and he had very serious after effects from it, and he couldn't go back to work. So he's selling off his collection, and everyone was chiming in, and there was about maybe like, I don't know, 125 responses to them, and just sort of like scrolling through it, I was shocked how many people were saying, "Yeah, I had it and this happened. Yeah, I had it and this happened." Like I'd say roughly like 50%, which is a crazy sampling. Like that is nuts, man. To just, it's just nuts.
Well, there was a long-term Lego builder who just passed.
Mark was telling me. Yeah. Scott Sandburn, right?
I didn't know who he was, but
I recognize the name, but I don't think I ever interacted.
He was somebody who goes way back to the Lugnet days, and as I understand it, he I guess got sick. I don't know any details. I just sort of know through the grapevine that he got sick and passed in the last few days. So,
do you remember what he used to build, Mark?
I think he was involved with the train lug.
Okay. Actually, probably Rich would know if he was on.
Yeah, Rich probably. Maybe he'll pipe up in the chat.
Yeah. Well, regardless, however they got to it, that sucks, man. Just sucks. But actually, I'm kind of surprised that, thank goodness there hasn't been more of that within the community that we know, right? Because like, with the exception of Jeff, we're all sort of like plus 45, right? So we're in like getting into the danger zone and stuff, right? So
yeah, you guys are old.
old as dirt.
That's the name of the show, Jeff.
But But I'm happy. But then again, who knows? Maybe that also shows you that maybe people in that demographic that we're in, maybe we sort of take more precautions. I don't know. Maybe that helps.
I don't know. I mean, I've certainly been careful myself. I know plenty of plenty of us on this show have. That's kind of how this show got started. Is a bunch of us were trying to be careful and stay home.
Yeah,
and
true. Yeah.
The four of us originals on the show. It was me and Chris, Dana, and Matthew. We're all in the same lug, and we started having Saturday afternoon informal lug meetings. And the four of us were just chatting and having fun, telling jokes and kind of whatever. And at some point, Chris sort of said, well, you guys want to do this on a YouTube show? And it was like, sure, why not? And so here we are, more than a year later.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, those of us on the show here, regulars, I think most of us have been pretty careful and tried to stay indoors and stay out of the mix and try to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Chris has to look after himself because Chris is a cancer survivor, and so he has a affected immune system. And
meanwhile, he probably sees more unmasked, and from the sounds of it, potentially, possibly more unvaccinated people than any of us, right? Just because of his job and the amount of people that he sees. So.
Yeah, I got a health waiver all of last year to teach electronically via video, and that they stopped doing that in the spring. And once I got my vaccine, I was more confident. I might still get sick, but I'm almost certainly not going to die as a vaccinated person. And
Right.
so I was okay with going back in the room. But even now, I have 2 online classes. They're letting me still teach 2, and then I've got an in-person class. And I drive over, I park, I walk in, I teach my class, I get in the car, I drive back home. So
Yeah.
my exposure is
Yeah.
an hour and 15 minutes in the classroom, and we do not have mandatory masking, but I would say it's 90% of the students are masking, which
That's great.
which I know faculty members that have young children, and they're really stressed. In my case, both my husband and I have been vaccinated, so I'm not stressed about anybody dying or hospitalized because, it's pretty effective. But I do feel bad for my colleagues that are worried about their children and not able to do anything about that. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think after resisting it forever, I think the province here is going to put in domestic vaccine passports probably in the next month or so. So,
Is that provincial or national?
Provincial. Health is all kind of like you guys. Like health is all state level. Same here. It's all provincial, but they're definitely putting in. Well, I don't know. We're in the middle of an election right now, but if the current party wins, then they'll definitely have a national vaccine passport for travel. But there's no election pending provincial, so they were resisting forever. But now that the tide is against them in public opinion, they're probably going to put in something similar to what they have in Europe or whatever, where it's like on a smartphone or what have you. And then I don't think they're going to be like other provinces where they'll say for a restaurant to be open, you need to check and only allow people in. But I think what they'll do is they'll say, if you have a vaccine only policy, will allow you to fully open, because now they're only open to like 30% capacity. So I think they'll probably do something like that. So, which is kind of good because I mean, they gotta kick it to the next level to try to get more people vaccinated. But
at this point, I would rather have crazy precautions in place, like, yeah, show us your vaccination card or whatever, than not having that. Because seriously, like, how many people have died from this shit? you know, and like, yeah, that's bad, and yeah, it's this and it's that, but like, you know, there's always that one mom or that one dad or that one kid or that one whatever. It's like, well, vaccines are against the whatever of whatever chosen religion that I'm worshiping this week, and like, you know, that crap, and it's like, it's just, you know, it's very frustrating. I live in Oklahoma, and we are a hot spot. Like a really, it's getting really bad hot spot, and I go to a local toy store like a lot, and the guy there is like, you know, I don't make people wear a mask, but I think I'm gonna have to start doing it. Even, you know, before then he still had the precautions and everything else, but like, there's people that will come in and just like hack up crap all over the place, and like me being a regular, I'm like, oh god, like I don't know if I can come back at this point.
Yeah.
And like everyone else is too. And like when Steve was like, hey, can you wear a mask? Well, what's going to happen if I don't? I'm going to ask you to leave. Well, I'm not going to leave. And then like I've seen that happen at a toy store with like toy collectors who should be more aware and more open to not dying than anyone else I know, but like that level of stupidity, selfishness, and whatever is just.
At that point, that's when I would walk over to them and say, like, well, can you put me in your will so if you die of COVID, I can collect your toys? I mean, that might be like, you know, 100 level trolling, but.
Speaking of, you know, slightly less apocalyptic, so Matt, are you gonna do the HasLab Rancor?
Oh, I'm an addict, so most likely. I haven't even seen the price point on it. How much is it?
It's not been released yet. It's
okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to start this fall. I think they're looking to clear the Galactus thing or whatever they got going now. So
right,
yeah. But
is it the Black Series scale or is it the 4?
Black Series?
Okay,
so it's 112. Yeah.
Wow.
It's gonna be like a German Shepherd. It's gonna be huge.
Is it really?
Have you guys seen the playset that Michael, I can't remember his name, but the guy from Retro Blasting had commissioned? It's the upscaled version of the Cloud City microscale playset from back in the 80s. It's huge and it's awesome.
Did he get that commissioned by Empire Toys?
No, somebody by the name of Joe.
Okay.
But it comes out tomorrow on YouTube, and he's going to show it off. And we got it a day early because I'm a patron of his, and it looks absolutely amazing. Like, I can't complain about it, and I don't want it because I don't do that. I have Lego to build playsets, but like, just the amount of detail that went into this thing is crazy, and it beats the hell out of the hallways to nowhere.
Right. Well, there's two guys that I know that do those huge sets. Like one guy did this. What's that part of? Is that the mech?
Yeah, I am working on
the Jungle Mech. Yeah.
Mech set.
Sweet.
And it's very cool. This is that knee joint is awesome.
That's with the mixel joints like side by each, right?
Yeah, it's mixel joints in there.
Yeah, that's cool.
They should use that when they're talking to people about knee replacement surgery to give them a feel for what they're going to get.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, this is what I'm working on. Ooh.
Nice.
It's the Baby Yoda. I'm building the Baby Yoda set.
Yeah, I'm building Grogu.
Jeff, his name is Baby Yoda.
His name is Baby Yoda. The populace has decided that Baby Yoda is his name.
That's where the case, and the populace decided that the Grogu's actual name is Kevin.
That's better than Grogu.
It is. Kevin is better.
And the only building I've done is I tagged on a door to my cliff for that Bad Batch photo.
That was an awesome picture, by the way.
Thank you. And yeah, retweak the shuttle a bit. I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised how sort of enjoyable the building of the main part of that shuttle is. They kind of do a cool thing. They like it's I want to say it's like the top part of it is plate built, but it's not really. It's kind of like a teeter-totter made with those 1x2 Technic swivels. So it kind of like it gets this really crazy low angle to it. Like it's maybe like about 15 degrees or so. But yeah, it was kind of cool. I was pretty impressed with that part of it. Other parts of it are just like a hot disaster. But I mean, that part of it was really kind of cool. But yeah. And of course, I had to put another side on that fin. That stud exposed look just makes my eyes twitch. It's like, oh.
Can you show us what yours looks like? Oh
Yeah.
wait, it's in the photos. It's in the photos.
It's in the photos. Well, I've got it here too.
But show us your tweaks.
This is what I did
Looks good.
for the little military guys to have a kick-ass Jeep to roll around in.
That looks really cool, Jeff.
Thanks.
They've got a satellite up
They do because it's the future, Matthew.
the
So-
future.
So yeah, so there. So it's like, so it's basically just using like sandwiching of the things just to mirror both sides. The spine attachment that goes along there, it's that new piece that's like 2x2 plate with like a 1x2 stick, like melded in, sticking up with studs facing. So rather than putting them all one direction, because the original set just has the plates on the one side, there's like 6 of them there. So I do like one facing that way, one facing that way, one facing that way. So then just by mirroring this on both sides, you can clamp them both on. And then on the inside, use that finger hinge trick, to have like turn them around so they add like a studs, not studs and anti-studs grip. So yeah, just that, and then just put some made the underside of the wing a little bit cleaner, I guess, a little bit more unified. But yeah, that's it. The rest is all the same. But it's kind of like it's like this whole front part is derpy with this thing and stuff like that. But when you've got it sort of in like the flight mode, the engines are like really quite cool. They're sort of really well constructed. But yeah, when you have it in this thing, it's like really swooshable. Like it's quite fun. So I was pretty surprised about how much I actually enjoyed it.
I think we need a demonstration of the swooshableness.
Definitely.
But I don't have the mind. How can I do this?
Well, do your best.
Sorry. Wait. Lone Star.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well,
actually, this I can show you here because it comes off. So this part here is what I was talking about on the top. Oops, this part. It like gets a really nice low angle, right? And it's just kind of on with those little things there that are kind of like they have like a series of them going backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. So when you put them on, they kind of like all clamp down into a really nice sort of angle that's just sort of picks up the angle of like the wing. So yeah, pretty impressed.
Well, it's sitting downstairs right next to my coffee table where I usually build in front of the television when we're watching shows or a movie, and so it's next on my to be built list, and it looks good. The box looks good, so I was kind of looking forward to it.
However, the interiors are atrocious, like absolutely atrocious. But
nobody sees the interior.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about modulars. I'm like, well, that's nice, but when I build my own, I'm just like, whatever. And it's here. Imagine that it's populated on the inside.
But Matthew, you're talking to Mr. Playability.
This is correct. This is why.
Well, nobody
seems mad.
with my mod. Nobody touches Matt's modulars once they're done. They just sit there to be looked at.
Nobody puts Matt in the corner.
That's right. Nobody puts the painted ladies on display. Nobody plays with the painted ladies.
And all that
They
implies.
just sit there looking all dignified. But it is one of those sets where I when I looked at it, I was like, if I buy this, they're going to come out with a UCS version in like 5 years, and I'm going to buy the larger version.
Well, actually, hang on. I still have it here. Looks like. When it was first released, I was crapping on the front part of it because of the windshield and how it looks like crap. So that's the model, and this is the one that I sort of quickly threw together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at this, like this has got like just so much more space and all stuff. It's got like a hinge top. It's like you can fit like the whole crew in there, no problem. And the good part about this one is that the body and the cockpit are two separate pieces, and they're just held on with Technic pins and some securing plates. So the plan is to decouple the front from this and then put, my own shtick on there. So yeah, such is the plan. If it happens, we shall see.
So speaking of UCS sets, I'm hearing that there is going to be an AT coming out this fall, or maybe even September 1st. I don't know, and of course, I being the Star Wars addict that I am, I will need to buy one, of course.
Of course, Bajors.
But that's. I know Mark. Mark says, "Well, I don't want to, just buy a shelf sitter," but I have several shelves that I just put in my new office. So at this point, I have the room for more shelf sitters. So I love putting those UCS sets together and putting them up. So at this point, I have space for it. So I'll be buying that and the Republic gunship, even though everybody else hates it except for me.
I don't know if the hate is the right word as much as just sort of not very impressed.
Oh, there was some hate.
No, thank you.
I looked at it and I thought, it doesn't really look that much better than the last minifig scale one. So, I
found it the same thing. I just kind of find it dull. It's like I don't find it too compelling. But I also know that for the UCS stuff, it's not, again, just like was previously said, if I'm Johnny Playability, well, that's not really what that line's about. So
no, but I will say, as much as I fully admit I will be buying it, that when you go up another level of size, it opens the door for more sculpting and shape. And I think, for example, when you look at the UCS Slave 1, I think it's gorgeous. And I think the B-Wing's gorgeous. I think they did a great job on both of those. So
I guess so. That's what I find. It's like for the USC Slave 1, like it was compelling. Like when I looked at it, it's like it had a lot of visual interest to me because of the way they achieved the different looks, the level of detail, something that with like scale modeling, they basically call it relief cut, right? So when you look at the surface of it, you really felt that there was something underneath the skin of that ship. Like, and you felt like when there was a crevice that it actually went somewhere. When I take a look at the
spot where Paul sits.
gunship one, it's kind of like, it seems like a shell. Like I don't get that feeling that there's more below the skin. You know what I mean? If that's kind of explaining it right.
Sorry if I talked over you. I was talking to my dog.
No.
Matthew, you're muted.
Richard in the chat said that a modular without an interior is soulless. Guilty, Richard. All my painted ladies are soulless.
When my daughter was at camp, I guess maybe 4 years back or so. There's this one nice counselor, really nice young guy. He was like really into weightlifting, all this stuff, and then he had all these tattoos and that's
Go on.
Sorry.
Go on.
Well, the thing is, I'm fairly sure that he was gay. I don't think he was quite out yet, but I'm pretty sure. But
I could sense it. I could sense it already.
and he's also French, Matt. He's got it all going. Yeah, I know.
There too.
I know. But it was so funny because he was like, he kind of like he really thought highly of himself, right? And when the counselors show up there, they're assigned names by their co-counselors, and they're normally stuff that's meant to cut them up. So this guy's name was Gaines, right? Because he was always with the Gaines. And but oh man, the funniest thing though is like at one point, one of the other counselors said, like, well, who's doing this group? Well, Gaines has got it. He's like, says, well, get the painted lady over here and let's go. No, the bearded lady over here and let's go, right? So, of course, the kids picked up on that. And, oh, my gosh, like the rest of the season, bearded lady. And luckily, he had a really good sense of humor about it. But he was a really good kid. But, oh, my God, it was so funny. Because my daughter comes home and says, Daddy, what's a bearded lady?
And you didn't know whether to be proud or concerned.
Exactly. Oh gosh.
So Matthew,
Yes.
you and I both saw a Lego picture that we have never seen before today.
Which one?
The one on Facebook that you commented that you'd never seen it before, sorted,
Oh, yeah.
unsorted. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the highlight of my day.
When I there was a teacher who came in, and she was an elementary teacher, and she was buying just the 2x4 bricks, but she was also buying 1x2 bricks, and she was saying that I don't remember what she was doing, second and third graders, but she said for addition and subtraction, this is such a good visual aid because you go, look, 2 + 2 is 4 bricks. It's like you stack them now. There's 4 of them, and instead of the numbers being abstractions, they're concrete. They can hold them in their hand and say, "Yes, I have 4 now." Which it's something I hadn't thought of, but it made a lot of sense. There definitely are some people who are what they call experiential learners, and they learn by touching and doing things. I'm not one of those people. And so I forget that other people need that kind of sort of tactile or, biophysical feedback to really sink in. But yeah.
All right, guys, I'm sorry to interrupt the conversation, but it is coming up on 9 o'clock, and our friend Brick Blaze, I believe, is doing his show starting at 8 Central Time. So I don't want to step all over his show, so I'm just going to wrap this up. And thanks, Jeff and Gil and Matt, for showing up. And everybody in the chats, thank you guys for showing up this evening, hanging out with us for a little while. And everybody have a good evening. And as Chris would say, be good to each other, get your shot, wear a mask, be good to your neighbor. Everybody have a great evening.
Trans rights are human rights.
We will see you on Thursday.